Hey, this is Michael Prasad with Church Brand Guide. Today we're going to be talking about how to create culture within your church. So, branding is a big idea that we talk a lot about here at Church Brand Guide. But the byproduct of branding is culture. So what happens when you create this documentation about branding, you discover who you are, and then you figure out what that needs to look like to be consistent. Then you provide you can put that into a document. So when we work with churches to discover their branding and then to document it, we're actually going to produce about a 20-page document that describes who they are, their target audience, colors, fonts, types of photography, and graphic styles that all are in alignment with their brand. So we're figuring that out in detail so that we can be consistent and create something that's going to be sticky in the minds of people over a period of time. The byproduct of all that is going to be a culture. You're going to be more intentional about your culture. Now, you're going to have a culture whether you want to or not. You're going to have a culture whether you're intentional or not. So you might as well be intentional so your culture is in alignment to help you accomplish the vision that God has given you. If you think about it this way, think about a honeybee hive, and you have all these busy bees that are doing what they do. They're busy, they're doing the work, but the byproduct is honey. It's this golden, delicious substance that is very good, and a lot of people like it. Bears like it. It's a great thing that's attractive. Well, the same thing is true. As your church is busy doing what you do, in alignment with the brand that you've created, you can produce this golden, delicious, great, awesome culture that is attractive, that people want to come and check out. And not only that, but it's sticky. They want to stick around and help you to carry that vision forward with their resources. So culture is its ooey gooey thing. It's not a building block. It's not like the student ministry or a kids ministry or a men's ministry that might be a physical building block of how your church does ministry, but it's the mortar that goes between the bricks. It's the stuff that you can't really see or push or touch, or it's just that ooey gooey stuff that makes everything work. The opposite is true. If you have a bad culture, then it really pulls away from the effectiveness that you have as a church. So you need to be intentional about your culture. Think of culture kind of as a square, and your square has edges to it, and that's very intentional because your culture is going to start and stop in different places. An effective culture is going to be defined. We talk about target audience quite a bit. Your target audience is going to respond to certain things, and they're going to be they're going to pull away from other things. So you need to know where the edges are so that you can do more of what's going to be effective to reach your audience and less of what's not effective. So you can say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things for your church. There's all sorts of ideas up there. And if you have a really well-defined brand, then you're going to create a culture that's consistent with that branding. I went to a church recently, and it's in downtown Kansas City, a young, vibrant church that's growing and has a lot of buzz in the city. So I decided to go check it out. After about an hour of being at the church, I started to feel a little bit out of place. And then I realized after a while that it's because of my shirt. I wore a shirt that was bright blue and had plaid on it. And the culture of that church was to reach out to the 20-somethings in the downtown area of the city. It's a big demographic that nobody's reaching, and that church, the brand of that church, is definitely built around reaching that group of people. So those guys were wearing tight jeans that were rolled. They had the shoes on with the white tips at the bottom. They had the dark muted colors that are solid. So after a while, I realized that, man, I'm standing out a little bit, because here I am at 36 coming to the service, and I didn't fully understand what the type of service was. Now, the service was great. I enjoyed it a lot. In fact, if I didn't have a home church, I would change my shirt and I would go back. And it's a great church, awesome work that they're doing. They're being very effective, growing multi-campus. And it's the result of that is that it's because they're very intentional about their branding. So every church should be intentional about your branding. It means you're going to say yes to certain people. Your brand is going to say, yes, you're welcome here to certain groups of people. And to other people, it might communicate that, hey, maybe you're not such a good fit. If I was unwilling to change my shirt, I probably wouldn't go back to the church. And you know what? That is perfectly fine. If they can run hard after their target audience and reach them and be effective because they're so focused on who they're called to reach, that's where they're going to reach the most people. And if they turn some other people away, that's okay, because the gain that they're going to have is going to be so much greater. The impact they're going to have is so much greater than if they tried to be everything to everyone. So that's kind of how culture works. There are edges to it. You're going to define who you are and who you're not. And as a result of that, you'll be much more effective and have a greater impact in your community and a greater reach. With this culture, you need to also define what is the path that you want to take people towards. So at Life Mission, we've developed this path that we, as new people coming to our doors, we want to have a plan where they can get to a point where we want them to be. So as a church, with the vision that God has given us, what are we here to produce? And we're starting with the end in mind, and then we're creating a path that helps people get there. So how do we take people from being a consumer? They come and they consume our services, or maybe they're consumers at an event that we have. How do we take them from being a consumer into being a disciple, and then into a producer that now gives back within the church, and then eventually into a leader? So they're leading in their homes effectively. They're leading in the church effectively. They're leading in the community effectively. We feel that at Life Mission Church, that's the ultimate thing that we can strive towards. And so we've designed a path that helps that to take place. As you can see, salvation. And what we're doing is we're putting what we do in the buckets that are that are going to help people take this path. So salvation includes a response to salvation with a prayer, and it also includes baptism. Then we have family. That's the next bucket, the next point that we want to take people towards. Within that, we have life groups and serve teams. Then there's freedom, and within freedom, there's Celebrate Recovery. There's a thing called Victory Night, Quest and Hard Quest, and this other thing called Freedom Weekends. And then growth, which is all sorts of classes that the church might offer to help people grow in an area, such as maybe Financial Peace University, so they can get budgets and everything figured out. Or maybe there's a marriage course that we do. So from growth, we go to mission. So this is going to be local outreaches or mission trips that we encourage people to go on around the world. So we feel like this is a nice path that takes what we do as a church and puts it into a way that people can understand it and go take this journey to become all that God has called them to be. Now they can go right from salvation to mission. That's perfectly fine. But we also want to provide a very comfortable path that makes sense in context of our church. So that's a part of culture. That's a part of creating a brand. Like, what is the path that you have defined to get people where they need to go within the church? Another part of it is defining what you do and what you don't do. In most churches, it looks like a river. So imagine a river with a lot of tributaries coming into it, a lot of different streams that feed a river, and then the river has a flow to it. So most churches have a lot of tributaries, a lot of streams, a lot of events that they do, a lot of activity that happens. But what happens is there's not a lot of intentionality behind it to lead people into the main thing, which is the river, the flow where the presence of God is, and relationships and connections can be made, so that people can go deeper in their relationship with God and with others. So the new model that we want to look at is this model where the river is the main thing. We're focusing on creating a very strong, healthy, and strong river, and we are in the process reducing the amount of stuff, the amount of tributaries, the amount of events that we do, so that we can instead focus on the river. This next section here just kind of explains what the river starts to look like. As we define what the river is, it's ongoing relational points of contact where people can connect with God in a deeper way and grow in their faith, and also connect with other people with multiple touches So it's a class that maybe happens at least 4 times, maybe 8, 12 times during the course of a period of time. So we want those relationships to form, and that's what the river is. That's the flow where those engagements can take place. And then the tributaries are the events that take place. They're one-time events, or maybe they happen twice a year, but very infrequently. But they're designed to just reach a lot of people. And then at the end of the event, or throughout the event, there's going to be a definite call to action towards the river. So what this might practically look like, maybe we have a men's event, and we try to reach men in the community, and maybe there's a guest speaker, and the guest speaker is talking about, hey, you need to get your finances in order so that you can do more for the kingdom of God. Well, we know that we have a financial peace class that's going to happen within the context of the river, where you're going to have multiple sessions to be trained up in this area of your life, and then engage with other people in a setting where you can make connections and friendships can form and family can happen. Well, that's part of the river. So at the men's event, the guest speaker and everything else going on, there's going to be a definite, clear call to action that your next step is to get involved in this financial peace class. So as a result of having a plan in place, every event now has a very big intentionality behind it to lead people into the river, which is ultimately going to help them stick around and help them the most in their faith and in their walk with God. So your brand, as you're intentional about branding and intentional about creating the culture of your church, you're able to see things like this happen and develop to where you can be very intentional to help people go where they need to go in their faith and in relationships with other people. And that's what it's all about. That's when we start to win as a church. It's when we start to see growth take place and life change happen. Lives are transformed and made for the better because we're being intentional and strategic so God can do what only He can do. So hopefully this helps you understand how culture is formed, how you can be intentional about the culture you have at your church. And as a result of the intentionality, you're saying yes to certain things and no to other things. And as a result of that, you're able to reach more people because you are laser focused on your target. So take those actions, take those steps to define your culture by creating your brand, and then really lean into it and go for it and reach the people that God has called you to reach. Thanks for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast. Just want to let you know about a couple of resources that you can take advantage of. The first one is on Facebook. Church Brand Guide on Facebook is a great resource. We do case studies with Facebook Live quite a bit. With Facebook Live, we're also able to answer your questions. So if you have questions that are specific to your church, I'd love to connect with you on Facebook and just provide whatever information I can, or even resources, links, anything like that. Facebook allows us to do that. So check us out on Facebook. Also, check out the churchbrandguide.com website. We've got a free stuff that you can download, and it's going to help you. There's an ebook that's on how to brand my church, and it just basically walks you through the basics of branding and why you need it. So check that out for sure. There's also a course that I've created that walks you through branding from top to bottom, gives you a bunch of PDF downloads to help you walk through the process for your church. So it's super helpful if you're ready for that, if you're ready to go through the branding process. This is a great investment to make sure you do it right. It's not going to cost you a whole lot, but it's going to make sure that you get it right so that you're going to gain a whole lot. There's also a way to connect with me directly. If you want me to guide you through the branding process, go to churchbrandguide.com, reach out to me, and I'll get with you, and then we'll figure out what that looks like for you to help you go through the branding process and for me to work with you on that. Well, thanks again for joining me today on the Church Brand Guide podcast. I'll see you next time.